Totally Football Show. Today, Copa del Rey is Copa del Cray and sees Real come a cropper. We talk Italy, why 2025 is Anno McTominay, why they want to make Ranieri Pope, and why Inter's hopes are going up in a puff of smoke. In Germany, there's Eki Tiki Taka and a Kane mutiny. And France, PSG facing Arsenal. Like when they eat their national dish, they're facing two big legs, but will they taste defeat? Big questions coming up in this Totally Football Show. All right.
Get in,
Jules.
Really good.
Monday, 28th of April. Listener, you join us for a very special Totally Football Show. We got your Julien Laurens right here.
Hello, Jimbo.
Lovely
Hello, everyone.
to see you, Jules.
Lovely to see you too.
What's on the big screen? Pol Ballús.
Hello. How are you?
All right, then. Pol's joining us despite a blackout in Spain. Monday afternoon, big things going on. Some controversy here in the studio as well, Jules.
Yeah.
Because you're saying that French people don't eat frog's legs.
No, we don't.
On what do you base that?
It's okay. It's just an invention from English people, I guess.
You've never eaten a frog's leg?
Like garlic bread is not from France.
Right, but that's not called French garlic bread.
It seems that you think in this country that everybody in France eats
Le
garlic
grenouille.
bread.
That's a frog's leg.
Le grenouille, yeah.
Do you know, the only time I've ever eaten frog's legs, and we're getting a little bit off topic here, is in a Chinese restaurant.
Is it?
Yeah, they were tasty. Paul, in Catalonia, is that a thing?
Not really. I mean, we eat snails, which is something which is...
Yeah, like us.
I think you do that in France. Yeah, you do that in France as well. And I love them, if I'm honest. I love them. It's one of my favorite dishes here.
Me too.
We ate snails recently, didn't we,
did.
Jules? Yeah.
We did when we were in France. Yeah, the sauce.
Oh, in France.
the sauce was
Yeah, just like the sauce is the key.
Yeah. In Spain, do they believe that the French eat frog's legs?
I think that the actual word that we use is ancas de rana, which means basically the arse. Somehow.
Oh, yeah, you eat the frog's arse. Frog's arse, where do you stand on them?
I mean, neither, but why not?
Tastiest part.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Later on, talking about this and other issues, we'll be joined by Max Callegari. Big week for Inter and Italian football in general. That title race, McTominay, woof. And, of course, Seb Stafford-Bloor, who may be a bit Seb Stafford-Bleary because he's currently at the dentist. So we'll see how he's feeling later on. Jules, your moment of the week, please.
There's a few I could have picked from Jimbo, and I'll go for Sunday night at the Velodrome because Amine Gouiri scored a hat-trick for Marseille. We'll talk about that a bit later. But more importantly, one of the three goals is a wonderful overhead kick. A bit cheating because the cross comes and he chests the ball up to then do the overhead kick. So it's not straight from the cross, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So like Rivaldo-esque, if you want, with Paul being here for Barcelona.
Yeah, thank you.
You chest the ball up to do it, and not Cristiano-esque like the one he scored, for example, with Real Madrid. So. But still beautiful. Well done to him. And
right, but it's quite like what Mandragora did this weekend for Fiorentina.
Exactly, yeah. Lovely, exactly the same, exactly.
Interesting. All right. A big win that for Marseille.
Massive.
How's it been going down in Rome in their Ritiro?
Yeah, great. They're going back today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, today.
Nice.
They were happy, although after the game, De Zerbi said, I know this is a family show, but can I say, like, breaking our balls?
Rompendo le scatole.
Yeah, like, or in French, casser les couilles.
Really?
Yeah,
the arse, though, isn't it? Or is that?
No, as in like, because he said like, you're doing too much about the Retiro. You're doing too much about us going to Italy. We looked for places near Marseille. We could not find anything. No. It's not about the spaghettis. It's not about Rome. It's not about the weather. Yeah. And it's okay. I was just wanted to get the players together, to get the right mindset to make sure we finish top 4 or top 3 and go in the Champions League next season. That's the only reason.
All right. Well, it's working.
Yeah.
Back in second place, Marseille. Very nice. Paul, your moment of the weekend.
Yeah, my moment of the weekend. I mean, I don't have a lot of games to choose in Spanish football this weekend because there was basically one, which was the Copa del Rey final. And I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay with Pedri's goal. I know that Jules Koundé should be possibly the one easy to highlight, but I'm gonna stay with the first goal that Barcelona scored in that game. Not just for Pedri's goal, which was a screamer out from outside the box, a really good pass, but like the whole sequence, starting from Pau Cubarsi's tackle, just to avoid Jude Bellingham's through ball, outstanding tackle, and yeah, you have to be so clever tactically to anticipate that pass that Jude Bellingham was about to do and just to cut it, then pass the ball to Pedri. Pedri opens it out wide to Lamine Yamal, who has the talent, the pausa, the calm, just to wait for Pedri again, and then drop the ball at the outside of the box, then boom, top bins. What a goal. I think that's possibly the full expression of what Barcelona of peak flick ball this season, these sort of quick transitions with this amount of talent. And yeah, I think that the encapsulation of the greatest of Barcelona this season was in that first goal that they scored in an amazing Copa del Rey final, which was an outstanding match with a happy ending for the Catalans as well.
Arsenal facing PSG this Tuesday, Champions League semi-final first leg. Jules, how much did PSG win by this weekend?
Great joke, Jimbo. First defeat of the season on Friday night.
I can't believe it.
Me neither.
They were 4 games away from becoming the first ever undefeated side in French football.
In French football history, yeah.
Wow.
And they haven't even beaten the current record of 32 games in a row from Nantes back in 95 that we've talked about before. So
I mean, it's still pretty good. 30 games into the season before you finally get beaten, and this time it happens at home to Nice.
Yeah.
Why, Jules? It was a strong team that Luis Enrique put out.
Yeah, the strongest 11, really. The team that should start on Tuesday at the Emirates, maybe Barcola instead of Doué. We're not sure. This is the only one position where it seems to have a bit of a doubt. But apart from that, you had the strongest back five, the midfield three that we've seen now for many months, especially in the big games. And then the front three as well with Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and then Doué on the right. It could be Barcola against Arsenal. But yeah, so strongest 11, one of those nights.
One of those nights. I sometimes feel, I feel that sometimes it's actually not a bad thing to lose your league game before a Champions League match. I don't know why. But a game like this maybe sets 1 or 2 alarm bells ringing. Firstly, because of the way that Nice scored with set pieces, which is a big Arsenal thing, as you probably know.
Yeah.
And the other thing is for the way that it saw a bit of a return to that problem that PSG had earlier on in the season. We have loads of possession, loads of shots, and you just don't have the finishing. Dembele, for example, what is it, 6 games now since
5 games in a row, yeah.
5
so
games.
He gave another assist. I think he's 3 assists in the last 5, but no goal, which is true. He's still decisive, but you're right. We saw glimpses of what, or no, more than glimpses even, of what we used to see before they turned their season around with loads of quality chances. I'm not talking, shot from outside of the box. Those were big chances. And the expected goals over the night is 3. It's less than 0.7 for Nice, for example, because they had 3 shots on target, 3 goals. But from a PSG point of view, I think Bulka made 8 or 9 saves in the Nice goal. He had 9 out of 10 in his L'Equipe ratings, and rightly so, because he was really unbeatable for a former PSG goalkeeper as well, albeit a long time ago, but still. And PSG just could not find a way. They were not terrible with the ball. And Luis Enrique after the game said, I would sign for the same performance, not the same result, but the same performance on Tuesday at the Emirates.
Really?
Because I think he knew, and to be fair, it was a good performance. Yet in the end, they lost and they were not clinical enough in the 2 boxes. But there was a lot of really positive things in the performance. However, and I agree with you, Jimbo, it's worrying to concede again on set pieces, although it looked like they were getting a little bit better at it, Donnarumma especially, not on Friday. They fell asleep at the start of the second half, and it's a few times now where they don't start well, and they either halves. And again, they didn't start well that second half because they conceded after 20 seconds or so when they were not focused clearly. It's still a young team. What worries me the most, I guess, is that Vitinha seems off it a little bit, especially out of possession. And he's the one that dictate in a way the counter-pressing a lot, the pressing in general. Also on the ball is one that is key. He's a key cog to everything that this team is doing. And if he's a little bit off it, like he's winning less duels, for example, his high pressure are less intense and less frequent. There's a few things like that makes me a little bit worried, because if he's off it, as we saw in the second half against Villa at Villa Park, then I think the whole team will suffer from it.
Since that defeat at Villa Park, you've only had 1 win. That was a 2-1 victory over Le Havre, 1-1 draw with Nantes, and then Friday's defeat at home to Nice. Arsenal, of course, beat PSG 2-0 back on October the 1st. More recently in the Champions League, they've sent Real Madrid into meltdown, effectively, caused them a late season crisis. PSG have got a terrific record against Premier League sides this season. Arsenal aside, City, Villa and Liverpool both knocked out. Is it going to be a deep block against the Gunners?
No, from a PSG point of view, no. The question PSG are wondering is how deep or not deep Arsenal will play.
Really?
So
do you think Arsenal will go into the deep block?
I don't think so. Not in the first leg at the Emirates, and I think Luis Enrique expect a median block. So not that they will press too high, but then that's where Barcola, I think, will start ahead of the way.
Why is that?
On the right-hand side, because I think in his mind, Luis Enrique anticipates a few spaces in behind Luis Kelly, for example, and Kivior on that side. And that's probably where PSG will insist a little bit. But yeah, the big question for Luis Enrique, he's been trying to figure out how Arsenal will play or how high will they play. Because from a PSG point of view, nothing will change. They will play out from the back like they did where Liverpool or did in the first half against Villa. The second half, they were under pressure. But the first half, they're going to try to do the same. And and we will talk about that in the Copa del Rey. The counter-pressing from Barcelona was exceptional on Saturday. And it will be the same on Tuesday at the Emirates. Who will press the best? Who will be press resistant the best between the two teams? Because PSG will press, I think, Arsenal quite high too. Maybe not as high as they do at home, but certainly quite high still. And it will be who's the best, who has the best pattern of play to beat the press that I think will succeed.
The French press.
The
French press. Paul, who have you got for this one?
I think PSG are the favourites here. I know that, and like Julian has said, that they've been a bit off it in the last couple of weeks, but I think that, in my opinion, they are possibly the best team in Europe, or the ones who play the best football in Europe. I think that possibly Barcelona could be in that category as well, but Barca have a factor that they are more knackered, in my opinion. All the players are more exhausted. And PSG, I think that they might have been able to handle it better. And it's a fact of PSG, I can feel in them that they are a team that have the capabilities just to break down teams such as Arsenal. I also expect that if any one of those sides have to be the low block, this is going to be Arsenal, for sure. Because I think that Mikel Arteta has done that in the Premier League when he's needed to. And Luis Enrique is never going to do that. Never. I think that he will prefer to lose 3-0 rather than quit from his principles. And let's see how it goes. Let's see how the teams are. But I still have PSG as the favourite in this tie, especially with the second leg playing in Paris. But I also think that they can make it in the Emirates, to be honest.
Good Lord. All right, well, that's coming up on Tuesday, Jules. Anything else you want to add?
I think Thomas Partey missing out is a massive loss for Arsenal when PSG have everybody available.
Right.
And I think, again, a bit like what we said before the Liverpool tie, the matchup between the two fullbacks on each side and the two wingers on each side. So Luis Kelly against Barcola Doué, Kvaratskhelia on the other side against Timber. And then obviously Hakimi and Nuno Mendes against Saka and Martinelli. This is where you win it. More than Dembele or Merino, even more probably than this quite sexy battle in midfield, really, between the PSG three and Partey, Rice Odegaard, or Rice Odegaard and Merino, regardless. I think this is those matchups that will matter the most. And really, they're the one we want to see. I want to see Kvaratskhelia one-on-one against Timber, same on the other side, and same for Saka against Nuno Mendes, for example.
Maybe you will. You probably will, no, Jules?
Yeah.
Tuesday night. What a week for Barcelona. Last Tuesday, the 1-0 win over Mallorca to stay 4 points clear of Real Madrid. Saturday against Madrid, the Copa del Rey final. What a final it was. 3-2 after extra time. The final goal coming after midnight on Sunday morning. There's so much to talk about from this game, but let's begin with the actual action and that opening goal. I mean, you talked about it as your moment of the week. We should maybe touch on Pedri a little bit because among the many stars of this team, is he now emerging as the most fundamental of all?
In my opinion, he is. By all means. He's one of those sort of players that possibly can be underrated because he's not on stats that much. He's not on goal involvement sometimes that much, but he sets the tempo. He's been impressive, not just with his creative ability, which of course is off the charts, but the defensive level that he's showing. He's the player with most ball recoveries in La Liga. He has adapted so well to this counter-pressing that Hansi Flick has inserted in the team. In a player that last summer in Barcelona, there were some doubts about his physicality, about his availability to be ready from a fitness level through a whole season, and he's been impressive. He's just been impressive. He has this confidence that he knows he asks for the ball in any time, and just for the way that Barcelona are playing, so relying in pressing and in a high line, having a play that that you pass him the ball and he doesn't lose this, and when he has to make a decision, he just doesn't make a good decision. He makes the best. that's just priceless for a team like Barcelona. And I think that you cannot see one great game of Barca this season without Pedri being great. In my opinion, he should be on the Ballon d'Or contention list and on the table for just for the discussion for that award.
Your defense is Pedrified, Jules.
Absolutely. He's the best player in the world for me right now.
Best in the world?
Yeah,
Wow.
There's no one better. He's the best midfielder for sure. I think there's not a player that has the same impact with and without the ball than him. Lamine is great, Rafinha, and they would be, with like Paul said, they will be part of the Ballon d'Or discussion, like Dembele, like maybe a Salah or somebody, and like Pedri. But for me right now, in pure form, what we saw against Mallorca on Tuesday was already, and not just the first touch that went viral between his legs, etc., but just overall that performance. And then again on Saturday, I thought he was just unplayable at times. I know he lost the ball on the Mbappe free kick first. So
I was about to say it.
Yeah, there's still things to improve there, but there's so much. He gives you so much with and without the ball.
That was the equaliser from Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Tchouaméni then putting them 2-1 up before Ferran Torres. A lovely finish there and a difficult...
Well, yeah, but big mistake by Courtois.
Big mistake by Courtois to come for the ball. But it's often you'll see the player either misjudge the amount of pace they put on it. I mean, it's difficult, but magnificent and problems for Real Madrid. Then you had the penalty shout, Paul. I'm skipping large swathes of what was the game of the weekend. So by all means, just tell us what your favourite bit was.
So basically, the end of the game was mental. I think that in a way was shocking to see that Courtois, a guy that has saved Madrid in so many times, did that mistake that basically allowed Barcelona to get into the game. Because in the second half, in my opinion, Real Madrid were the better side in there. I think, as I was saying, Barca players are just knackered. And in the second half, I think that this sort of heavy usage through the season, didn't make them a favor. Then Real Madrid, you put Mbappe on the pitch and you put a beast in there. And it's difficult to control. And I think that Real Madrid were there and they managed to, come back in the score deservedly. But then this Courtois mistake, Ferran Torres scored, which, by the way, Ferran Torres, what a cup he's had, 6 goals, top goal scorer in the competition. And he's been one of these old-fashioned things that we used to see back in the years, which is a cup striker in a squad. So basically, Robert Lewandowski has been benched in all the big games in the Cup, and Hansi Flick has made Ferran Torres the Copa striker, and he allowed him to be the starting striker in the final as well, although Lewandowski was injured, of course. Ferran Torres scores this goal, and then in the final, like the sort of controversy in the end of the game, because we had this penalty on Rafinha, which the referee gave. It wasn't a penalty, in my opinion. It wasn't a penalty. Rafinha was looking for that, and there wasn't enough contact for a penalty. But just 5 minutes before that, there was a potential penalty on Ferran Torres from Rudiger that, in my opinion, was as clear as a day. And basically the referee didn't see it, and the VAR didn't tell the referee to go and check it. So a lot of controversy in there, with all the controversy that surrounded all the referees through the weekend in Spain, because that was mad to see.
It's really hard to talk about the refereeing decisions without seeing them in the context of Real Madrid on Real Madrid TV putting out a piece on the errors that they felt this particular referee had made in the past. That referee then giving a tearful press conference explaining how his children were getting abuse in school because of the kind of targeting that Real Madrid and perhaps other clubs have been doing. But particularly, I mean, Real Madrid have just been doing this all season. And then the total meltdown from their players. I mean, Rudiger. And I think if anybody comes out of this really badly, and lots of people do, but Carlo Ancelotti just standing there while his players run around like kids throwing tantrums after too much Sunny D or something, was just a really disappointing figure. What's the reaction been outside of the pro-Madrid press, Paul?
I think that the reaction all over Spanish football is just to see Real Madrid, a team that lost their heads with what they did over the weekend. As you were saying, it's not been one thing for this weekend. The sort of video footage that Real Madrid TV have been doing with referees, it has been going on for years. They have been really harsh on referees, which, I'm not going to justify. Of course, all referees have mistakes and they do well and they do bad some weeks. But the pressure that it has applied to them on a family level and the scrutiny that they've been beyond football has been off levels, like off the limits. And it all collided in this weekend because the Spanish FA for the Copa del Rey final, which is possibly not the right choice to do, but they like to do this referee press conference in a...
Yeah, that's the only country, I think, Certainly not in France or not in England.
Yeah, that's like the only country, and that's from the Spanish FA just to try to show the world how transparent they are and how, just let's make referees speak and just show their vision from a human perspective on how they approach the game and everything. But with the context that has been brewing in Spain with referees for weeks and months and years, I would say it was the perfect storm. And when they got the question on how they lived through that and all the pressure that the Spanish media has, he basically broke down. He broke down into tears, and that was it.
So then Real Madrid decided to boycott all their pre-final media activities, and there were some suggestions that they were considering not even playing the game, possibly because of the way they'd behaved over the Ballon d'Or when they didn't get the decision they wanted and didn't turn up. But they said, no, there was never a question of that. They turned up, they played. As you mentioned, the big call at the end of the game, or big calls at the end of the game, went in Real Madrid's favour. So why was it that they picked up 3 red cards for Bellingham, for Rudiger for throwing ice at or trying to throw rice at the referee, and Lucas Vazquez as well?
It was for throwing a bottle of water.
Bottle of water, okay.
The meltdown in the end, in my opinion, was just frustration from the players, because they were seeing that they were losing out on a title, that they have lost every Clásico they've played in this season, and that they are having. I don't know if fracaso, a failure, is the right word here, but with all the squad that Real Madrid has assembled, I think that every trophy that they don't win is sort of a failure because, possibly they have one of the best squads in the world, if not the best. And this sort of frustration collided with the fact that Ancelotti is living his last days in the Real Madrid bench. So it's basically everything is falling apart. All the players know it. I think that Ancelotti is a quite loved figure in the dressing room. He's been a really likable character around the club, but the fact that this is all coming to an end against Barcelona in a final in dramatic fashion with a remontada against them, I think that it was too tough to deal with for some players. I think that Rudiger completely lost his head. His reaction is, there's just no words just to justify it because he was really gone. His head was gone. He needed to have like 5 people.
He looked possessed,
He's been building up towards this, I feel, in recent games. He's going to have a spell out between 4 to 12 matches. Apparently, he could be facing of suspension. So their next clash with Barcelona, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, a week on Saturday, is it? The Clásico, which could see them reopen the title race, but is the feeling that until they get their kind of house in order mentally, they're never really going to challenge the Catalans?
I think you never know with Real Madrid because when they look dead, they just are reborn at some point. But I mean, if you ask anyone here, like the feeling around Spain is that Barcelona are, of course, the top contenders in La Liga title race, that Barcelona have had this edge against Real Madrid in all the games that they've played this season, because I think that while the legs were fresh, Barcelona were the better team on the pitch, that they were above Real Madrid and they could dictate the tempo of the game like they wanted to. And there's the feeling that this is going to continue. Ancelotti made the tactical tweet. He left Mbappe on the bench at the start because basically he has been saying over the past few weeks that his favorite system is the 4-4-2, which was seen as a subtle dig to the hierarchy and the planning of the team, because basically with the team that you have, that Real Madrid has, he cannot play with 2 strikers because he has 3 that are world class and you cannot leave one of them on the bench. So in this game, taking advantage possibly that Mbappe came after an injury, he said, okay, you're going to rest for the first half and we're going to play with this 4-4-2 that I like to play. I don't think that it was massively successful. I think that Barcelona were still the best team, possibly. And then just the fact of unleashing Mbappe made Real Madrid better. But I think that Real Madrid are still one level below Barcelona this season, and they have not been able to turn the tables on that.
Well, the Clásico coming up, another Clásico Saturday week. Before that, Barcelona's quadruple quest will see them take on Inter at San Siro, 15 years on from that fateful volcano-influenced coach trip to Milan.
Don't tell me about this.
Jesus. It's interesting that you were saying that Barcelona are feeling a bit leggy, because that's exactly the problem that Inter have. We'll talk with Max very shortly about their current woes, 3 straight defeats without scoring a single goal in any of those games. Barcelona, I think, for most people, will be heavy favourites in this match. The one thing is, though, with the high line that they play, Barca, Inter are a team who can really... The way that Inter hit teams on the break, we saw this against Bayern Munich.
But then you don't have Marcus Thuram, which I think is a
Maybe
massive
they
blow.
will. Maybe they will.
I mean, okay, not Marcus Thuram fully fit 100% because he won't be fit.
Okay.
If they play him in this first leg, the second leg, you've got an extra week, the first leg. So this Wednesday, I just don't think how fit it will be. And I think that's a real shame because that front two, the partnership between Lautaro and Thuram works really well as well when they are fit and capable. And there's part of the season where they haven't been, and you could see that they were not at their best. But when they could cause trouble to any defense in Europe right now when they are together and when they're fit. And it won't be the case, I think.
What's the mood like in Catalonia ahead of the game, Paul?
I mean, the mood now, if you ask fans, everyone is so excited about the team and the quadruple quest, as you were saying. Plus, there's the women's team who is in the Champions League final as well, so it can be like a fantastic season for the club. But like being realistic, Barcelona are going to miss Robert Lewandowski and Alejandro Balde as well, which are two key players in this team. And one thing that everyone knows is that Flick is not going to back down on his high line. There's no way, just in the same line as I was saying with Luis Enrique and like his PSG side. I think that Flick, he's just going to play like that and just let's see how it goes. But he's going to insist on just trying to adjust all the mechanisms to make sure that Inter cannot capitalize on that. But the game is going to be in that matter. Then there's a lot of doubts as well on which striker is going to play, because there were questions about putting Dani Olmo as a false nine, because with Inter's three centre backs, maybe that can be an effective way of sort of distracting them. Just putting Dani Olmo in there, Fermín López and an extra midfielder, and let's see if the sort of Barcelona tiki-taka can do its way. I think that the mood is feeling that Barca are favourites, but they know that Inter is possibly the team that tactically can capitalize more on Barcelona's flaws. When I was in Dortmund, I can remember when I was in Dortmund after the game, all the people inside and around the club wanted Bayern to go through and not Inter Milan. And that tells you a lot of how wary they are on the tactical side of things that this Inter team can bring to the game.
Paul, a couple of other Spanish sides who are in European action on Thursday. Real Betis are up against Fiorentina.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Really fun game because Real Betis are just improving and improving. They are so fun to watch. They outplayed Valladolid in the last league game. I think it was a 5-1 win. And the sort of talent that they have up front is just exciting to see. So, it's going to be a fun one.
And Athletic Club against Man United, Paul.
Ooh.
That's going to be a tense one, but one that Athletic Club are really focusing on. I would say that they are more concerned about the Europa League than in La Liga, where they have a safe position to be in Europe next season and in the Champions League next season. But this Europa League, as I pointed out at the start of the year, is really marked in their calendars because the final is in San Mamés, because they have not tasted the European glory, and they have had a lot of failures in previous finals. I remember this one in Bucharest when they lost against Atletico de Madrid. They really want that to happen. Plus, the fact of playing Man United is something that in a place like Bilbao, in stadiums like San Mamés, where playing this sort of historical and this sort of football nostalgia plays an element as well. Facing Man United is something that turns them on a little bit, if I'm allowed to say the word.
Of course you are.
Of course.
We're all feeling a little bit excited by it.
Okay.
Paul, that's fabulous. Thursday morning we'll be having a Totally Football show. Maybe we'll be chatting with you about what Barcelona did at San Siro, but definitely we'll be hearing from you, blackouts permitting, next week. Yeah. So have a great time in the meanwhile. And many, many thanks, Paul.
It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, and let's hope that if we speak on Thursday, you don't take the piece out of me, and I have good news.
Indeed. Indeed. This episode of the Totally Football Show European Edition is brought to you by FedEx. FedEx is an official sponsor of the Champions League. As a trusted global logistics service provider for businesses around the world, FedEx are looking to shine a light on the innovative small and medium-sized businesses working in the football industry that have shaped the game today and are contributing to a thriving future. We call these the FedEx Champions of Business. These businesses have grown themselves while also building a foundation for success for today's clubs and star players, whether that be at grassroots levels, through performance and analytics, or the development of the fan experience, to name just a few. Go to fedex.com/champions for inspiring stories of businesses in football. That's fedex.com/champions. Max Callegari joins us now on Totally Football Show. Max, hello. Tutto bene?
Hi guys, hello. Very, molto bene, grazie. You?
Excellent. Last week we were talking about spareggi, and then events have kind of overtaken that conversation a little bit, Max.
Sorpasso,
Hey,
overtaking.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jules also knows now what retiro means.
Yeah, Retiro, yeah. Welcome Marseille in Rome.
Yeah, yeah.
Rome needed the tourist trade.
You know, they went to the Vatican on Wednesday as
Did they
well
go?
to pay the tributes, as you do.
Rome have been, or Roma at least, have been quite a central figure in the events of this weekend, Max, and the sorpasso which you mentioned, which saw Inter lose their lead in the Serie A title race. They're now 3 points behind Napoli after the Neapolitans beat Torino on Sunday 2-0, a brace from Scott McTominay, while Inter were defeated by the incredible Claudio Ranieri and his Giallorossi. Max, you want to talk about the title race? You want to talk about Inter's prospects against Barcelona? Where do we begin?
You are the host. You decide.
So we were just talking with Pol Ballús about the Inter-Barca clash on Wednesday, and he was saying that Barcelona are essentially running out of gas, but that very much seems to be the problem with Inter. A week ago, it was ahead of that Coppa Italia semi-final that you covered for Canale 5, where they took on the underdog Milan, and Milan absolutely creamed them 3-0. They followed that up with this defeat at the weekend. Prior to that, there'd been the last-minute goal from Orsolini, which saw them beaten by Bologna. And so 3 games in a row now, no goals scored. They haven't had a series of matches like that since when? 2012, I think it is. But it's utterly unlike what we've come to expect from Simone Inzaghi's side. So what has happened?
A lot of things. I think that they are tired, okay, but they feel a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure for this treble. We are now in a situation that we call in Italy the legge of contrappasso, the law of retaliation. What goes around comes around, because Ranieri was the manager in that period in 2012 when they lost 3 games without scoring. And then Ranieri was the manager of Roma when Roma lost the Scudetto against Mourinho's Inter. And that was the season of the treble of Inter, the League, the Coppa Italia, and the Champions League. This was the goal of Inzaghi and the club until last week. And now all or nothing. They are losing everything. The prophecy of Mourinho to the Inter rivals: you will end your season with 0 titoli, he said, 0 trophies, is going back to Inter, because there is the chance that they will lose. They are going to lose everything. I think pressure, tired, okay, and also some lacks in the roster. They lack an option, an alternative to Marcus Thuram, for example, because with him they have an average point of more than 2, and without him they have an average point of 1. With him they score an average goals of more than 2, and without him they score an average goals 0.3. So it's very, very important as a player. Lautaro Martinez is playing every game until the last minutes, also in the Coppa Italia, the semi-final, when they were down 0-2. So a lot of problems at the end of this incredible what goes around comes around. 15 years ago, there was the situation of the volcano in Iceland, if you remember, in Iceland, the Eyjafjall volcano that inducted Barcelona to travel with the bus from Barcelona to Milan, and now there is a blackout in Spain. So we don't know how Inter is going to travel tomorrow to Spain because everything is stopped, everything is out in Spain and in Portugal now. Airports, hospitals, everything is blocked. So a huge situation, and now the problem for Inter for they travel to Spain, to Catalonia.
That's huge. I actually had them at San Siro in the first leg, but no, they got to go to Montjuic.
Yeah, which is an advantage for Inter to have, obviously, the second leg at home next week.
I guess that's true. They were at home this Sunday, though, when they faced Roma. No goals whatsoever from the Nerazzurri. Roma's coming from Matthias Soulé. Before we talk any more about Inter and the prospects against Barcelona, we should, a brief parenthesis on Ranieri and what he's done with Roma, a side that he picked up. They were kind of in relegation form at the time. To give you an idea of how bad things were going, Ivan Juric was their manager.
Yeah.
It was that dramatic.
That bad.
They then lost their biggest player, Paulo Dybala, for the rest of the season. And despite that, he's put together a run in what he claims is his final session as a coach, as a manager, of 18 games unbeaten, brought them right back to the edge of Champions League contention, beaten Inter, reopened the title race. Just extraordinary.
Yeah, extraordinary, and also an adjective, a word that we wouldn't link to Ranieri, but he is very, very modern. He is a very, very modern manager because he also has a great experience, of course, but he is playing in different ways. He played, for example, some games very compact defensively. He has played yesterday in Milan on Sunday in a very offensive way with a player on Çalhanoğlu, with two forwards and more Soulé and Pellegrini, then Baldanti, who is another offensive midfielder. So he's playing in a very modern way, and he is adapting his team to the others, to the rivals, but also with a great personality. And he is considered, of course, reliable by the players. They trust him, they follow him, and this is very important because, as you said, the first part of the season was very chaotic for Roma, beginning with De Rossi with 3 years of contract, then sacked, then Juric, and then, as you said, some more difficulties than before Ranieri.
Ranieri, I think, after the game at San Siro at the weekend, talking about the fact that he chose to go with a more attacking lineup because we're not playing that Inter who was so good, say, a month ago. This is a team that all of a sudden is there, that can be put under pressure, that doesn't have the energy to respond.
This is a choice. This is a view of their point of view for the game, a tactical plan, a perfect tactical plan. They deserve to score another goal, in my opinion, during the game. They almost risked to concede a goal because there was a penalty on Jan Bisek by Ndika that the referee didn't award. But this is football. But the performance was incredible, and they are brilliant, physically brilliant. This is what lacks at Inter. It's evident. The feeling is that Inter is tired mentally and physically because they have rotations. They had turnover during the season, but they felt the pressure of Napoli because the reasons the club's rivalry we have in Italy between Inter AC Milan, Inter Juventus, Juventus AC Milan, the three big clubs. But there is a rivalry between Antonio Conte and Inter because he was the manager some years ago, because he parted ways with the club abruptly, the same as Juventus when Marotta was the general manager and now is the president of Inter. So they know him, he knows them, and they know that if he has a little chance to win, he can win. Consider that Antonio Conte is in his sixth season in Italy as a manager in the league. he won 4, 3 with Juventus, 1 with Inter, and the other one, he arrived second with 1 point to Juventus. So he's going to his 5th league out of 6, and he's going to win the league with 3 different clubs. Nobody in the past was able to do that in Italy. So masterpiece.
If he wins this time, 3 points clear with 4 games to go. Napoli with a vastly easier run in. All their opponents, I think, are from the bottom half of the table. One stat that bears mentioning when you talk about the fact that Inter don't have the squad depth, they've played 52 games so far this season. Napoli only 37 so far.
We said that from the beginning, didn't we? That could be the key in the season, is that Napoli only had to focus on the league.
And the other key thing, Napoli have Scott McTominay.
Ooh.
Scott McTominay.
Super
McTominay.
Did you expect him to play as well as he plays in Serie A?
I didn't think he would be that good and scoring that many goals. However, I knew that Antonio Conte will use him in the perfect way. He would not ask him to sit in front of the back four and try to play like Pirlo. He would not ask him to be a player that he isn't. You knew that Conte will make the most of the qualities that McTominay has, which is what I guess United should have done all those years too. So it's great when I see him score 2 identical goals. This weekend, I'm like, this is where he's so good at, and this is the smartness of Antonio Conte as well.
No central midfielder has scored as many goals as McTominay this season anywhere in Europe, or in the top 5 European leagues. 11 now. I think he's got 5 in the last 3 matches, which is one of the reasons why Napoli have moved. He's the new Marek Hamzic. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Or something even more than that,
yeah.
perhaps?
Oh, no, less, I think.
Something even less than
More physical.
More physical,
sure.
Max is right, but less of the all-around game than Hamsik had.
Right.
Hamsik could still find diagonal 70 yards, which I don't think McTominay can. So slightly different, but yeah, it's similar still.
One quality that he does bring that I think is being celebrated is the leadership. And a lot of Man United fans would love to have the personality that he's showing for Napoli, that he's shown in difficult moments for the Padenambe at Old Trafford still.
Yeah, and the discipline too, James, because he trains and he plays as every training and every game was the final one. So this is mentality, this is discipline, this is personality. And this is what Antonio Conte looks for his players. We have to remember that in the summer markets, Aurelio De Laurentiis and the club spent a lot of money. They lost Victor Osimhen. They put in Lukaku, McTominay, David Neres, Buongiorno, one of the best Italian defenders we have. But in January, they lost Richard Kvaratskhelia. And you have seen what he has done in the Champions League, not in the league. So a huge loss. Okafor as a replacement played, I think, no more than 30 minutes under Antonio Conte. We think, knowing him, that this is also a message for the club. So the message is Okafor is not fit to stay at this level, and you didn't replace Kvaratskhelia as I wanted, because he wanted, for example, Garnacho, he wanted Adeyemi, Borussia Dortmund. But anyway, they lost in the last weeks Buongiorno for injury. They lost David Neres for injury, and they're going to win. They plays with Spinazzola, who is a fullback, as a left wing. They play with Raspadori when they need to score, as in Monza with Lukaku and Raspadori behind him. So different strategies, different tactical plans, a great mentality, and this is a typical Antonio Conte style.
Well, you have them down to win the title by the sound of it, Max. What do you think then about the one other competition still open to Inter if they are to avoid zero titoli, and that is the Coppa dei Campioni, the Champions League? Barcelona, that we mentioned with Pol, tactically Inter are the team who may be at their best set up most ideally to counter the Catalans, but they're not at their best. What do you think about Wednesday?
I do agree. I totally do agree with you and Paul for this. I think that for his way to attack deeply with speed, Thuram and Dumfries too are the 2 key players for Inter to play the way they can play at Montjuic, but Dumfries came back yesterday, Sunday, against Roma after many weeks. He was out for injury. And also Thuram maybe will play, but won't be 100%. So these are two things that you have to consider. The tactical plan is what you said. Also, there is the chance that no other forward to play instead of Thuram alongside Lautaro Martinez, maybe Fratesi, who is an attacking midfielder. But the tactical plan will be that you said. I don't know if it will be enough. I don't know will be enough because Inter lost in 1 week, not only 3 games, but also the self-confidence they had along the whole season. And it was crucial, for example, against Bayern Munich, because you have watched the 2 games, you've seen how hard was, how tough was the last 15 minutes for Inter in San Siro against Bayern Munich. We consider it as a final part of the game legendary, okay, because they resisted until the last second. But I don't know if they will have the same energy against Barcelona in Montjuic in the next hours.
So true. Barcelona, though, to be fair, did have that very late night on Saturday, Sunday morning against Real Madrid. Max, just one last thing before we let you go. And it's a question from Beyblade Takumi. Beyblade Takumi.
Yeah, nice name.
Who says, on the Euro Totally show, can we get some shout-outs for teams that may possibly get promoted? Pisa under Pippo Inzaghi to Serie A, for example. So they're currently second.
Sassuolo is up already.
Yeah.
Which expected.
They're there. They're in second place. I think they're...
They are in the second place. Pisa in the second place. They won the last game in Brescia. And there was a key game for Pippo Inzaghi because he was the manager of Brescia in the past, but he had
to sue
not a
them.
good relation.
Yeah. That was when Cellino was the owner, yeah? Massimo Cellino, legendary figure. Of course. And Cellino brought him after Eugenio Corini, no? And then he fired him.
Yeah.
And then Pippo sued. Have I got this right? Pippo sued Cellino because he had a clause in his contract, very wisely, that he couldn't be fired if they were in the top 8 positions in the table, which they were at the time. So he had to bring him back in. Anyway, so they beat them this weekend. For the town of Pisa, which not since, I think, 91, the days of Paul Elliott, have they featured in Serie A.
Yeah.
That would be great, no?
They had a fantastic and legendary president, Romeo Anconetani. Yeah. There were some great figures in those years. Him and Costantino Rozzi of Ascoli.
Yeah.
They were famous because they went on the pitch with salt and throwing salt in the goals to bring luck to their teams. And that was a symbolic club because they brought in Italy, for example, players like Cholo Simeone. He was not so known as then in the 60 years, and it was a talent scout, Romeo Anconetani. This is a different situation, of course, as a club. They had many problems and many issues as a club in the past. Now they are stable. This is the difference. And Pippo Inzaghi is a specialist in the Serie B. He already won in the Serie B with Benevento. He already won in the third league, in the third division with Venezia. So I think he's a very good manager, and I think he deserved the promotion. I think that he can achieve it winning against Frosinone in the game they will play on the 1st of May, but they need also a combination of other results. So they need to win, but it couldn't be enough only to win, but it's a question of time because against Spezia they have a big and a huge advantage.
Excellent. 4 clear, in fact, with 3 games to go. Max, thank you very much for your time this week. Have a great weekend, and I hope you enjoy Barcelona Inter. I will catch up with you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Max Callegari, the Beyblade Takumi's question though, Jules. Who have you got battling for promotion in France?
We have had our first promoted side, Lorient, this weekend. We went back up a year after coming down. Yeah, a year after coming down. And the coach Pantaloni is the Scott Parker of promotions. Because I think this is his 5th promotion or something
really?
Like that. Yeah.
The Pippo Inzaghi of promotion.
Yeah, the Pippo Inzaghi of promotion. French Pippo Inzaghi.
His name's Pantaloni.
Yeah.
Trousers.
Olivier Pantalon.
Oliver Trousers.
Yeah, Olivier Trousers. It's Corsican, so don't go too far because otherwise you'll have the Corsican on you.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
He's making great strides.
A great stride, obviously.
Yeah.
Baggy, is there something to do with Baggy if he joins West Brom?
I imagine he'd be great over 2 legs, though.
And then Paris FC is the other big story we're waiting to see. They are in a really strong position to go up straight away without the playoffs. But we'll have to wait a bit more. It's between them and Metz to get the second automatic promotion places. Right. And after that they will have a playoff with the team that finished third from bottom in Ligue 1 as well. But yeah, great news from Lorient and the same time as Montpellier, which we knew officially relegated now.
Officially relegated this weekend. Yeah. Right, okay. In a second or two, it's Seb Stafford-Bloor with the Bundesliga. But first, Jules, something else you wanted to mention from the Italian weekend.
Yeah, just quickly, because Lecce played Atalanta away on Sunday and got a really good draw away from home. But that game was supposed to be on Friday night, not on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. But the club asked for it to be postponed because sadly their physio passed away on Thursday night. And Lecce were really unhappy with the league for only postponing it from Friday to Sunday instead of moving it to a later date.
Right.
I mean, the poor guy hasn't had even his funeral, and yet they still play the game. When we saw Barcelona, for example, losing the doctor and having that game against Valencia postponed. And in protest, they played the game, and as I said, they got a good point away at Atalanta, but they wore a different shirt, all white shirt, with the names and the number at the back like normal. But in the front, there was no sponsor, just, it said, no values, no colors, basically, to say, this is not a nice thing to do. You could have paid tribute or respected his memory or something by postponing the game for more than just 48 hours.
Seb Stafford-Bloor joining us now. How are you, Seb? Wie war der Zahnarzt?
Zahnarzt. Yeah, the tooth doctor has made me grumpy. I've been to the dentist.
Oh,
did he make you grumpy?
Poor Seb.
Why did he make you grumpy?
Well, because you experience pain, it costs you a lot of money, and it leaves you with... My tongue feels like 4 times bigger than it should normally be. So if I sound weird or if I'm inarticulate, I'm really sorry.
Do you know where I'm going tomorrow morning, Seb?
The dentist.
Are you going to the dentist also?
The tooth doctor.
I love the dentist. I used to hate the dentist. Now I love it.
How come?
I don't know.
What's changed in your mind?
I guess I just don't know. I got over my fear of the dentist. I embraced
it's not a fear of... Yeah, but it's not a fear of the dentist, though, is it? Because it's like, fear makes it sound irrational. Like, the dentist is painful and expensive, so...
It is painful and expensive, you're right.
It is.
I'm reconsidering my attitude towards dentistry.
Your teeth looks great.
Thank you so much, Jules.
I mean, Seb went only because he broke one by eating at the weekend, probably a barbecue or something.
What did you eat at the weekend, Seb?
No, it was innocuous. I was eating some peanuts, had a handful of peanuts, and then I didn't actually realise it had happened until part of my molar was missing. And
so you actually ingested the molar, so you couldn't even put it under your pillow.
I will get nothing back from the tooth fairy at all. No.
It's a mouse in France, not a fairy.
It's a tooth mouse?
Yeah.
A tooth mouse.
Seriously?
La petite souris, a little mouse.
I mean, that's nonsensical. Which child would believe that a little mouse would bring money?
My kids.
Right.
I mean, and the little mouse in our house is very generous as well, so my kids would believe it could be a dragon, they would believe it as well.
Clearly it's a fairy. What's the German equivalent of the tooth mouse?
I don't know, but it's almost certainly not tax deductible, whatever it is.
All right, Seb. I have to tell you, you're sounding great and looking good as well.
Thank you.
Bayern are 1 game from the title, he said, slipping seamlessly into a little bit of Bundesliga chat. Harry's been speaking out, and pinch me, Dortmund genuinely appear to be back. Should we start with them? So they're now just 3 points off the Champions League positions again, brave Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, let's start with the controversy at the end of their game against Hoffenheim. So they won 3-2 down in Sinsheim, but they were drawing 2-2. They were 1 up, then 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. What looked like a very, very late equaliser to dent their Champions League ambitions. And then controversies. So there was a collision between Connie Chukwuemeka and Oli Baumann the Hoffenheim goalkeeper. Kind of 50-50. Goalkeeper comes out, makes a smothering save. Baumann got hurt by the impact. It seemed to take a bit of a shin knee to the head, to the temple. Initially stayed down as play continued, but then obviously saw the play was continuing. Sergio Guirassy passing around the box to Valdemir Anton, who scored from the angle. And Baumann sort of got up and clearly wasn't right and was sort of a bit wobbly, as you'd expect from a pretty heavy head knock. Anton scored, and obviously place went crazy. So Christian Eiser, the Hoffenheim head coach, said afterwards, it's a scandal. Yeah, it's all about Champions League for Dortmund, but our Bundesliga status is on the line because they are only at the moment 5 points above 16th place Hoffenheim, so probably going to stay in the league, but not certain. The difficulty, Jimbo, is that it's not really clear what anyone could have done about it because Chukwuemeka didn't commit a foul. He was entitled to go for the ball. He got to the ball just before Baumann, and Baumann's instinct to get up and try and carry on kind of counted against him because the referee, who's reacting as quickly as anybody else on the pitch, is he doesn't see in his peripheral vision a goalkeeper on the ground. He sees one getting up and trying to regain position, and so there's nothing within the rules really where you could say, okay, stop the game. And the Dortmund players aren't culpable either because clearly their instinct is let's score. It's the 95th minute of the game. Need to qualify for the Champions League. So it's just one of the really, really unfortunate incidents. And poor Oli Baumann, because there's no suggestion that he wasn't hurt. Clearly he was injured, and there's a big old bump on his head afterwards. And a lot of the Dortmund players went over after full time to check on him. And yeah, really, really tricky, really, really unlucky. But I don't think anyone's really to blame for it. If that all makes sense. Yeah, difficult one, but hugely important for Dortmund because also, so next weekend, you mentioned they're only 3 points behind Freiburg, who are in 4th place, and 1 point behind Leipzig, who lost to Eintracht. So next week, Leipzig will entertain Bayern Munich in Leipzig, and Freiburg will have to go to Leverkusen. So you'd imagine if Dortmund can beat Wolfsburg at home at the Westfalenstadion next weekend, they, thanks to their superior goal difference, will suddenly be in 4th, which is an amazing turnaround under Niko Kovac.
Although what kind of opposition Leverkusen will be for Freiburg, we shall see, with the title quite possibly wrapped up next weekend for Bayern Munich, and reports saying that Xabi Alonso is going to be in Madrid in time to take charge of the Madrileños for the Club World Cup. Yeah. That's what they're saying, Seb. Is that what they're saying in Germany?
No, still undecided. And we're still at the kind of, this indecision, this uncertainty is not helpful. At the moment, still focused on the Carlo Ancelotti news. And, Alonso has been asked about Real Madrid pretty much for every press conference for the last 13 months. And he straight bats. Not quite sure where we go from here. Fernando Caro was asked about it last week and said we'll have a resolution within 3 weeks. If Alonso wants to go, Leverkusen have made it really, really clear that they won't stand in his way. They'll negotiate with Real for the fee that buys him out of the final year of his contract. Some talk of a gentleman's agreement. It's not as direct as a release clause, but it'd be pretty costly all the same. I think, just my opinion, not trying to break any news here, I think he ends up in Real Madrid, and I think he probably does that after the Club World Cup. I think that would probably make the most sense, I think.
Bayer Leverkusen, as I mentioned, likely to see their title pass to Bayern Munich, or back to Bayern Munich, this coming weekend, if Bayern can win their game away to RB Leipzig, who got absolutely hammered 4-0 at Frankfurt this last weekend. Bayern, meanwhile, 3-0 winners against Mainz. Michael Olise with his 9th goal and his 15th assist in this 3-0 victory. Harry Kane picking up a yellow card, which means he'll be suspended for next week's game. And Harry, usually mild-mannered Harry Kane, pretty strong with his opinion on the referee. Unfortunately, some people come to the Allianz Arena to try and make a name for themselves. He said he was not talking about himself, he was talking about the referee.
Yeah.
And he called it a crazy, crazy decision. He picked up a yellow for basically not allowing...
keeping the ball, holding
exactly,
on to the ball,
not allowing a free kick to be taken. Yeah, which is, them the rules, I believe. Seb?
It was harsh in a sense because Bayern Munich were 2-0 up at the time. It was the 46th minute. We're in first half stoppage time. Kane seemed genuinely perplexed at a decision given against Bayern rather than, I don't think there was any intent to delay the restart of the game. And if you look back at the footage, you can see him asking the referee, why have you yellow carded me? That being said, I mean, there is a bit of consistency here. On Sunday, Conor Metcalf, St. Pauli's Australian midfielder, received his second yellow card in 3 minutes at the end of their game in Bremen for a very similar offence. And it was a little bit more flagrant. He kicked the ball away and there was a bit of jeopardy, so you could understand it. But it was equally harsh. I don't think Kane covered himself in glory with what he said. He has a point about the Bundesliga's rules around yellow cards, because unlike in the Premier League where you get an amnesty halfway through the season and you start again from zero, you don't have that in the Bundesliga. So it means that yellow cards that you accumulate across all 34 match days count. And so Kane got booked on the first game of the season, and all these weeks later, match week 31, we're talking about a fifth yellow card, which 5 yellow cards in 32 appearances, doesn't really feel suspension worthy. And Kane made that point. He said, not sure how well this will go across, but said maybe you should think about adopting, not quite what he said, but adopting the Premier League system.
Or the other leagues. It's not just even the Premier League. I think it's only in the Bundesliga, yeah.
But he referenced the Premier League, the Premier League specifically. So I suppose depending on how you're minded, you can interpret that as a kind of, not good enough for you. Which, given the sort of the anti-Bayern Kane sentiment that tends to knock around, he might be encouraging that a bit. I think he'd want that back again, that interview, because he was upset. And Alex Pavlovich was asked about this after the game, and he said that Harry was pretty annoyed in the dressing room afterwards. And you'd understand that, because he now won't play in Leipzig, where Bayern, because of their goal difference, really just need a point now to confirm their title. So given you mentioned Leipzig's the battering they took in Frankfurt over the weekend, you'd imagine that Bayern will get that. So tough moment for him, because it's the first major trophy of his career, obviously, and he's serving, I think, what is the first suspension of his career, which
Really?
is
He's not usually the type to. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
It's it's pretty tough. But he did say also, listen, don't care. I know it's a story. I'm not sure I believe him when he says that, but don't care. I'll be celebrating as hard as anybody if and when we win the title, and I'll be in Leipzig. So he put a brave face on it.
Excellent. I'm sure he will be celebrating. Anything else we should know from the exciting world of the German football?
Yeah, I've got a really interesting stat for you from the white-hot world of the Drittliga, so the third tier. This weekend, the overall attendance for the league went over 4 million fans for the first time in its history. It's relatively new. It's under 2 decades old, but previously, over the course of an entire season, the record was 3.5 million fans. And it's bettered that with a couple of match days to go. And the league itself, actually, there's some big old teams down there, like Dynamo Dresden, Alemannia Aachen. The average attendance across that is just under 12,000 fans per game, which is, I think it works out as being the highest attended third-tier league in European football. I can't think of any that would better it. But yeah, great, nice little stat.
I see that Borussia Dortmund are in 15th place there. What's up with that?
That is Borussia Dortmund's fighter team.
Yeah, the reserve.
Yeah, that's a reserve team.
Is that like an under-23 development squad?
Yeah, it would be I think it would be an under-19 team, actually.
It's like Juventus next gen kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, or like Bayern Munich have their amateur side in the Regionalliga, which is 5th tier at the moment, I think.
It's only in this weird country in England that you don't have reserve teams allowed to play a professional level or at least semi-pro level.
And you have those sort of gnarled veteran, like 35-year-old players knocking about there who are kind of like father-like figures to young up-and-coming players. It's kind of fun, weird dynamic, but fun.
Seb, you were saying something else?
Yeah, I was just going to point to Freiburg, actually, because obviously the conversation around the Champions League now is about Dortmund's comeback and can Leipzig hold on and what does it mean if they can't, etc., etc. But Freiburg's highest finish in the Bundesliga is 5th, and Julien Schuster, who's obviously took over from Christian Streich last summer, this is his first season as a full-time coach, just turned 40. At the moment, they're in the box seat, and that would be an amazing accomplishment. They've had 2 5th place finishes, I think, during their Bundesliga history, but to play in the Champions League would be an amazing accomplishment for them. And tough old arse next week because they've got to play Leverkusen, but still worth recognising the achievement.
Excellent. Look forward to catching up with you again next week on the European edition of the Totally Football Show. So there you go. That's another Totally Football Show wrapped up, Julien Laurens.
I've got another story I need to tell you.
Oh, yeah?
Just one, just to finish. It was a quite contrasted weekend for John Textor and his Lyon club.
Right.
Men and women. Even if the women's side, he obviously sold it to Michel Kahn, so it's not really his, but let's say it's his. The men won finally again after the huge disappointment at Old Trafford and in the derby against Saint-Etienne. Really nice win, by the way. The women got humiliated at home by Arsenal in what was a terrible performance in their semi-final of the Champions League second leg. So they're not going to reach their 12th Champions League final. And for the first time since 2009, they lose the semi-final, actually. So well done to Arsenal. But also this weekend, another club of John Textor of the Eagles Galaxy, Molenbeek, were playing because they are in the Belgium second division playoff for promotion.
Right.
And what John Textor did was he was unhappy with the coach because they were leading they were top of the table and it looked like they were going to go straight to promotion. But faltered towards the last few games. So he sacked the manager and replaced him by Keita Fofana, who used to play for Lyon, who was the Lyon B team coach.
Okay.
33-year-old, no real experience of first team football. Thrown into the deep end for those playoff quarterfinals first
So he
leg.
brought him in for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Never set foot at the club before.
No, that's what John Textor does for you. Keita Fofana then saw his new team, losing 2-0 away at Lokeren, where a certain Raja Nainggolan plays.
Okay, nice.
2-0, but there was still the home tie, the second leg at home to do a remontada, overtake it, a bit like what Lyon did against Manchester United.
Did Textor fire him?
Textor didn't fire him,
Okay.
but Keita Fofana and Molenbeek were 3-0 up with 5 minutes to go in the second leg.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Great, except that Raja Nainggolan then scores and Lokeren score another, and Molenbeek only won 3-2, which was not enough, and got knocked out. Exactly. So John Textor, your idea or like your, I don't know, what's the words? Decision, sorry, the decision to sack your manager backfired.
It certainly did, Jules. And John Textor weeks away now from the deadline for sorting out Lyon's finances, meanwhile.
Absolutely. But at least he was at Wembley on Saturday. I saw him there to see Crystal Palace, which he owns,
of course,
41% of the shares, qualifying for the FA Cup final.
Good. Jules, many, many thanks.
Thank you, Jimbo.
Enjoy the Emirates on Wednesday.
Come on.
And I hope you enjoy your week as well, listener. We'll be back with another Euro show on next Tuesday, I'm thinking. Before that, of course, Thursday, there's the regular show. Hopefully you'll join us for some or all of that. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.